The mining station on asteroid XK739 was supposed to be a quiet posting. Captain Helena Rodriguez had specifically requested the remote assignment after losing her husband in the Centauri Wars. What she hadn't expected was bringing her 6-year-old daughter Maya along when the child care arrangements on Earth fell through at the last minute. Maya skipped through the sterile corridors of the research facility, her small hands trailing along the metal walls as she hummed a tune her father used to sing. The other scientists and miners tolerated her presence with varying degrees of patience, but most kept their distance. Children were rare this far from civilization. Dr. Chen Wei, the xenobiologist leading the expedition, had made an unprecedented discovery 3 days earlier. Deep within the asteroid's core, they had found something that defied explanation. A crystalline chamber containing what appeared to be an egg. Not just any egg, but one that belonged to a creature from the restricted databases. A Wyrmling. The Galactic Council had classified Wyrmlings as Class X threats after the Drakmor incident 50 years ago. An adult Wyrmling had single-handedly destroyed 3 military cruisers and a space station before finally being contained. The creatures were described as living nightmares, beings of pure malevolence with psychic abilities that could drive entire crews insane. Maya didn't know any of this as she wandered into Dr. Chen's laboratory that morning. She had been looking for her mother, who was reviewing mining reports in the next section. The lab was dimly lit, with various specimens floating in preservation tanks and strange equipment humming quietly. In the center of the room sat the crystalline chamber, now cracked open like a flower. Steam rose from its interior and a soft, almost musical chirping echoed from within. Maya's eyes widened with wonder as she approached the chamber. Completely unafraid, "Hello," she whispered, peering over the edge. Inside the chamber, nestled among the glowing crystals, was the most beautiful creature Maya had ever seen. It was no larger than a house cat, with iridescent scales that shifted between deep purple and silver. Its wings were translucent and delicate, like stained glass windows. But it was the eyes that captured her attention, large, intelligent, and filled with what looked like sadness. The Wyrmling hatchling looked up at her and chirped again, a sound that reminded Maya of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Without hesitation, she reached into the chamber and gently lifted the creature out. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly light. "You're not scary at all," Maya said softly, cradling the Wyrmling against her chest. "You're beautiful." The creature nuzzled against her, its scales shimmering brighter as it made contented purring sounds. Maya could feel something wonderful happening, a warm sensation in her mind like sunshine breaking through clouds. The Wyrmling was trying to communicate with her, and somehow she understood. Images flashed through her thoughts. Not words, but emotions and pictures. Loneliness, confusion, fear. The creature had been alone in its crystalline prison for so long, waiting for something, anything, to break the terrible silence. "I know how you feel," Maya whispered, stroking the Wyrmling's head. "I miss my daddy too." The connection between them deepened. Maya saw flashes of the Wyrmling's dreams, vast starfields, other creatures like itself flying through space, a sense of belonging and family. But also loss, as its kind had been scattered across the galaxy, most hunted to extinction. Dr. Chen chose that moment to return to his laboratory with a security detail. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Maya holding the Wyrmling, his face going pale with terror. "Maya, don't move," he said quietly, his voice shaking. "Put it down very slowly and step away." But Maya frowned, confused by his fear. The Wyrmling sensed the hostility in the room and pressed closer to her, trembling slightly. The security guards raised their weapons, causing the creature to emit a high-pitched whine of distress. "No," Maya said firmly, turning to shield the Wyrmling with her body. "You're scaring it. It's just a baby." "Maya, that thing is dangerous," Dr. Chen explained, trying to keep his voice calm. "It's not a pet. Wyrmlings are killers." The little girl looked down at the creature in her arms, then back at the terrified adults. "But it's not trying to hurt anybody. It's scared and lonely." As if to prove her point, the Wyrmling began to sing, a hauntingly beautiful melody that filled the laboratory with harmonious notes. The sound was unlike anything any of them had ever heard, touching something deep in their hearts. For a moment, even the hardened security guards lowered their weapons, captivated by the creature's song. Captain Rodriguez burst into the laboratory, having been alerted by security. She stopped short when she saw her daughter holding the legendary monster, her maternal instincts warring with her military training. "Maya, honey, please listen to me," she said carefully. "That creature is very dangerous. I need you to put it down and come to Mommy." Maya shook her head stubbornly. "It's not dangerous, Mama, it's just different. Just because something is different doesn't make it bad." The Wyrmling looked up at Captain Rodriguez with those large, expressive eyes, and for a moment she saw not a monster but simply a frightened child, much like her own daughter had been after losing her father. The creature's scales had shifted to a soft, calming blue, and its posture was entirely non-threatening. Dr. Chen activated his recording equipment, documenting this unprecedented interaction. In all the historical records, no Wyrmling had ever shown anything but aggression toward other species. Yet here was a hatchling displaying what could only be described as affection toward a human child. "The neural pathways are completely different from the adult specimens we've studied," he muttered, reviewing his scanners. "This creature's brain chemistry shows no signs of the rage hormones that drive adult Wyrmlings to violence." Maya continued to comfort the Wyrmling, humming the song her father used to sing. The creature responded by harmonizing with her, creating a melody so beautiful that several crew members gathered at the laboratory door, drawn by the sound. For the first time since the discovery, Dr. Chen began to wonder if everything they thought they knew about Wyrmlings might be wrong. Perhaps the aggressive behavior of adults wasn't inherent to their species but learned. Perhaps they had been approaching these creatures with such fear and hostility that they had created the very monsters they sought to destroy. As Maya and the Wyrmling continued their gentle interaction, something remarkable was beginning. A bond between species that would challenge everything the galaxy believed about one of its most feared creatures. 3 days had passed since Maya first held the Wyrmling, and the mining station had transformed into something resembling a research facility mixed with a daycare center. The creature, whom Maya had named Shimmer because of its color-changing scales, refused to be separated from the little girl for more than a few minutes at a time. Captain Rodriguez found herself in an impossible situation. Protocol demanded she report the discovery to the Galactic Council immediately, but she knew what would happen. They would send a military fleet to destroy both the creature and possibly the entire station. The official policy regarding Wyrmlings was clear: kill on sight, no exceptions. Dr. Chen had been working around the clock, documenting every interaction between Maya and Shimmer. His findings were revolutionary and terrifying in equal measure. The Wyrmling hatchling showed intelligence levels that surpassed most adult alien species, learning human words and concepts at an astounding rate. "Watch this," Maya said during one of Dr. Chen's observation sessions. She held up a red ball and said clearly, "Red." Shimmer's scales immediately shifted to match the color perfectly, while it made a sound that was clearly an attempt to mimic the word red. When Maya showed it a blue cube, the creature's scales changed again and it managed a close approximation of blue. But it was more than just mimicry. Shimmer understood concepts. When Maya pretended to be sad, the creature would nuzzle her and emit soothing sounds, its scales shifting to warm, comforting colors. When she laughed and played, Shimmer would dance in the air around her, its tiny wings creating beautiful patterns as it shared in her joy. The crew members had gradually overcome their initial terror. How could they fear something that spent most of its time curled up in a 6-year-old's lap, purring contentedly? Shimmer had never shown even the slightest aggression toward anyone, though it remained shy around the adults. Engineer Tom Nakamura was the first to admit he'd been wrong. "I've seen the vids from Drakmor," he told Captain Rodriguez over coffee. "That thing that destroyed those ships was a monster. But this little one, it's just a baby. Maybe we've been looking at this all wrong." The most remarkable development came during Maya's nap time. Dr. Chen had been monitoring Shimmer's brain activity when something unexpected happened. The creature began to project images directly into the laboratory's computers through some form of bioelectric interface. The images were memories, not Shimmer's own, but inherited genetic memories passed down through generations of Wyrmlings. What they revealed changed everything. Wyrmlings had once been a peaceful species, living in harmony with dozens of other alien races across the galaxy. They were natural empaths, able to sense and share emotions across species barriers. Their psychic abilities weren't weapons, they were tools for communication and understanding. The memories showed a thriving civilization where Wyrmlings served as diplomats and healers, using their empathic abilities to resolve conflicts and bring peace between warring factions. Their homeworld had been a paradise of crystal cities and floating gardens, where dozens of species lived together in harmony. But then came the Great War, a conflict so devastating that it had been erased from official galactic history. An aggressive machine race had invaded Wyrmling space, seeking to harvest their psychic abilities for military purposes. The machines had captured Wyrmling young, subjecting them to horrific experiments that twisted their natural empathy into rage and hatred. Dr. Chen watched in horror as the memories revealed the truth about the monster of Drakmor. It hadn't been a natural Wyrmling at all, but one of the machine race's weaponized victims, a creature driven insane by torture and genetic manipulation. The real Wyrmlings went extinct centuries ago, Dr. Chen explained to Captain Rodriguez later that evening. What we've encountered over the years were the machine race's corrupted versions. Shimmer might be one of the last pure Wyrmlings in existence. Meanwhile, Maya was teaching Shimmer to play hide-and-seek in the station's recreational area. The creature had mastered the game quickly, using its natural camouflage abilities to blend with surfaces, but it always made sure to let Maya find it eventually, emerging with happy chirps when she got close. "You're getting really good at this," Maya giggled as Shimmer materialized from what had appeared to be empty air. "But you can't hide from me. We're best friends now." Shimmer responded with a complex series of notes that sounded almost like laughter. Its scales shifted through a rainbow of colors expressing pure joy. Through their growing mental connection, Maya could feel the creature's emotions as clearly as her own. The bond between them was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. Maya was learning to interpret Shimmer's complex color language, while the Wyrmling was absorbing human concepts and emotions through their psychic link. They were teaching each other, creating a bridge between their species. Lieutenant Sarah Collins, the station's communications officer, made a startling discovery while monitoring long-range sensors. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures from the asteroid field near the outer system. The patterns match Wyrmling psychic emissions, but much stronger than anything Shimmer produces." Captain Rodriguez felt her blood run cold. If there were adult Wyrmlings in the area, the station could be in grave danger. She ordered yellow alert status and had the defensive systems brought online, but Shimmer's reaction was unexpected. Instead of showing fear or aggression, the little creature became excited, its scales cycling through rapid patterns of gold and silver. Through her connection with Shimmer, Maya sensed anticipation and hope. "It's not scary," Maya announced to the worried adults. "Shimmer is happy. I think its family might be coming." Dr. Chen's scanners confirmed the impossible. The approaching signatures weren't showing the chaotic, aggressive patterns associated with corrupted Wyrmlings. Instead, they displayed the harmonious, organized patterns he had observed in Shimmer's genetic memories, the signatures of true, uncorrupted Wyrmlings. As night fell on the mining station, 3 shapes appeared on the long-range sensors, moving toward them with graceful, deliberate purpose. They were larger than Shimmer, but their approach was cautious, almost hesitant. Through the viewport in her quarters, Maya watched the stars with Shimmer curled in her lap. She could feel the creature's excitement building, and something else, gratitude. Somehow, by showing kindness to one lost child, Maya had helped preserve something precious that the galaxy had thought was gone forever. "Are you going to miss me when your family gets here?" Maya whispered to Shimmer. The creature looked up at her with those large, expressive eyes and touched her face with one delicate wing. Through their bond, Maya felt a wave of emotion so strong it brought tears to her eyes. Love, loyalty, a promise that their friendship would last forever, no matter what came next. Outside, the 3 shapes continued their approach, and Captain Rodriguez prepared for what might be the most important first contact in human history. The 3 adult Wyrmlings arrived just as the station's artificial dawn cycle began. Captain Rodriguez watched through the observation deck as the magnificent creatures approached, her hand resting on the emergency lockdown controls. Each Wyrmling was roughly the size of a small spacecraft, their scales shimmering with colors that seemed to capture and reflect the light of nearby stars. Maya pressed her face against the viewport. Shimmer perched on her shoulder like an exotic bird. The little creature was practically vibrating with excitement, its scales cycling through rapid bursts of silver and gold. Through their mental connection, Maya could feel Shimmer's joy mixed with nervous anticipation. "They're beautiful," Maya whispered in wonder. "Like flying rainbows." Dr. Chen monitored the creature's psychic emissions from his laboratory, his instruments detecting something unprecedented. The approaching Wyrmlings weren't simply moving through space, they were singing. Their combined psychic voices created a harmony so complex and beautiful that it brought tears to his eyes. "Captain," he reported over the comm system, "I'm not detecting any hostile intent. If anything, their emotional patterns suggest curiosity and hope." The largest of the three Wyrmlings, its scales predominantly deep blue with streaks of silver, positioned itself near the station's main docking bay. It didn't attempt to force entry or damage the station. Instead, it simply waited, floating in space with an almost regal patience. Through the station's external cameras, everyone could see the creature was magnificent beyond description. Its wingspan stretched nearly 100 meters, and its eyes held an intelligence that was clearly ancient and wise. This was no mindless beast. This was a being of great intelligence and power. Shimmer suddenly took flight, zooming toward the airlock that led to the docking bay. Maya ran after the little creature, calling out in alarm, "Shimmer, wait. You can't go out there." But the Wyrmling hatchling was determined. It pressed itself against the sealed airlock door, singing in high, urgent notes. Through their bond, Maya felt Shimmer's desperate need to reach its family, but also its reluctance to leave her behind. Captain Rodriguez arrived just as Maya was trying to comfort the agitated creature. "It wants to go to them, doesn't it?" she asked her daughter. Maya nodded, tears in her eyes. "But it doesn't want to leave me. It's scared they won't understand about humans. It's scared they'll make it choose between me and them." Dr. Chen hurried over with his portable scanner. "The adult Wyrmlings are definitely trying to communicate with Shimmer. The psychic activity is off the charts. But there's something else. They're also trying to communicate with us." As if responding to his words, the station's main computer system suddenly came alive with activity. The screens throughout the facility flickered and then displayed something impossible. Images and concepts being transmitted directly into their systems by the Wyrmlings outside. The images were stunning. They showed the galaxy as the Wyrmlings saw it, not as a collection of separate worlds and species fighting for resources, but as a living tapestry of interconnected life. Every planet, every star, every creature was part of a greater whole, and the Wyrmlings served as the keepers of that cosmic harmony. But the images also showed great sadness. The Wyrmlings revealed that they had been searching the galaxy for centuries, looking for any survivors of their species. They had found only the corrupted ones, the tortured, twisted creatures that had been turned into weapons. They had been forced to put their own kind out of their misery, believing they were the last free Wyrmlings in existence. Until now, the discovery of Shimmer, uncorrupted and pure, had given them the first hope they had felt in generations. But the images also showed their confusion about the little creature's bond with a human child. In all their vast experience, they had never encountered a species capable of forming such a deep psychic connection with a Wyrmling. Maya watched the images with wonder, Shimmer translating the complex emotions and concepts through their bond. She could feel the adult Wyrmlings' surprise, their cautious hope, and their deep desire to understand what had happened to their lost child. "They want to meet me," Maya said suddenly, looking up at her mother. "They want to know how I bonded with Shimmer." Captain Rodriguez felt her protective instincts flare. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." But Dr. Chen was studying his readings with growing excitement. "Captain, this could be the most important moment in galactic history. The Wyrmlings aren't hostile, they're trying to communicate, and Maya might be the key to understanding them." Shimmer flew to Maya and landed in her arms, looking up at her with pleading eyes. Through their connection, she felt the creature's deep need for its family, but also its absolute trust in her. Shimmer knew she would make the right choice. "I want to meet them too," Maya said quietly. "Shimmer is scared and alone. It needs its family, but it also needs them to understand about friendship." After what felt like hours of debate but was actually only minutes, Captain Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. "We'll use the diplomatic meeting room off the main docking bay. Full environmental suits for everyone, and I want security teams standing by." The meeting room had a large, transparent aluminum window that looked directly into the docking bay. If the Wyrmlings could somehow enter the bay without atmosphere, they could communicate face-to-face while maintaining safety protocols. As the station crew prepared for this unprecedented first contact, the largest Wyrmling seemed to understand their intentions. It moved closer to the docking bay doors and waited. The other two Wyrmlings took positions nearby, their scales shifting to calming blues and greens. Maya suited up in the smallest environmental suit they could find, her excitement barely contained. Shimmer perched on her helmet, its own scales matching her suit's color in what Dr. Chen realized was a protective camouflage response. When the docking bay was finally opened to space, the large Wyrmling entered slowly and gracefully. Its presence filled the bay like liquid light, scales shifting through colors that had no names in any human language. Up close, its size was even more impressive, ancient and powerful, yet moving with surprising gentleness. The creature's large eyes fixed on the observation window, and Maya felt a gentle touch at the edge of her mind. Not invasive like the horror stories described Wyrmling psychic contact, but polite, like someone knocking softly on a door. Maya looked at Shimmer, who chirped encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, the 6-year-old girl opened her mind to the ancient being on the other side of the glass. What happened next would be remembered as the moment two species truly met for the first time. Not in fear or conflict, but in wonder and hope. The ancient Wyrmling's mind was like touching the surface of a vast, calm ocean, deep beyond measure but warm and welcoming. Through that contact, Maya felt centuries of loneliness and loss, but also incredible wisdom and compassion. The Wyrmling wasn't a monster at all. It was a grandmother, a teacher, a keeper of memories and dreams. And for the first time in decades, it was no longer alone. The mental connection between Maya and the ancient Wyrmling matriarch was unlike anything Dr. Chen had ever recorded. His instruments showed neural patterns that seemed to blend human and Wyrmling brainwaves into something entirely new. The two minds weren't just communicating, they were harmonizing. Through the transparent barrier, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor of the observation room, her small hand pressed against the glass. On the other side, the magnificent creature had lowered her great head until it was level with Maya's, creating a mirror image of connection across species. Shimmer floated between them, acting as a living translator. The little creature's scales shifted in complex patterns, each color conveying emotions and concepts that helped bridge the gap between human words and Wyrmling song thoughts. "Her name is Starweaver," Maya said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "She's been searching for Shimmer for over 300 years. She's Shimmer's great-great-grandmother." The revelation sent shockwaves through the observation team. Captain Rodriguez found herself looking at the ancient being with new eyes. This wasn't a monster from their worst nightmares. This was a grandmother who had spent 3 centuries searching for her lost family. Through Maya's translation, Starweaver began to share the true history of the Wyrmlings. The images that flowed through their connection painted a picture of tragedy that spanned millennia. The Wyrmlings had once been the galaxy's peacekeepers, their empathic abilities allowing them to understand and mediate between different species. They had no concept of war or hatred in their natural state. When conflicts arose between other races, Wyrmlings would arrive to help heal the emotional wounds that drove the fighting. But their very gifts made them targets. The machine race known as the Devourers had recognized the potential of Wyrmling psychic abilities as weapons. They had begun capturing Wyrmling young, subjecting them to neural conditioning that twisted their natural empathy into rage and aggression. The corrupted ones weren't evil, Maya explained, tears streaming down her face as she felt Starweaver's ancient grief. They were tortured until they went crazy. The Devourers turned them into weapons and sent them to attack the places the real Wyrmlings had tried to protect. Dr. Chen felt his understanding of galactic history crumble. Every aggressive Wyrmling encounter, every monster attack, they had all been victims of the Devourers' biological warfare. The real Wyrmlings had been forced to hunt down and destroy their own corrupted children to prevent further suffering. Starweaver showed Maya images of the last great battle, where the surviving Wyrmlings had made the ultimate sacrifice. They had used their combined psychic power to create a mental virus that destroyed the Devourers' collective consciousness, ending their threat to the galaxy forever. But the effort had cost almost everything. Their homeworld was destroyed, their numbers reduced to a mere handful of survivors. They've been hiding ever since, Maya continued her translation. Living in the empty spaces between stars, searching for any uncorrupted wyrmlings that might still exist. Starweaver is one of only 12 left in the whole galaxy. The weight of that revelation settled over the station crew like a heavy blanket. They were witnessing the final chapter of an ancient species, played out in the connection between a child and a grandmother, separated by eons of loss. But Starweaver's attention turned to something more immediate, her amazement at Maya's ability to bond with Shimmer. Through their connection, the ancient Wyrmling examined Maya's mind with the gentleness of a butterfly landing on a flower. What she found there astonished her. Human neural pathways were remarkably similar to Wyrmling thought patterns in ways that had never been documented. More importantly, Maya's natural empathy and innocence had allowed her to form a connection that bypassed the usual species barriers. She says humans are special, Maya reported, struggling with concepts that had no human equivalent. Our minds work in ways that can understand Wyrmling thoughts. She thinks that's why Shimmer bonded with me so easily. Dr. Chen was furiously taking notes, trying to capture every detail of this unprecedented exchange. The implications were staggering. If humans could naturally communicate with Wyrmlings, it might mean they could help heal the trauma that had nearly destroyed an entire species. Starweaver began sharing newer memories. The arrival of the 3 surviving adults when they sensed Shimmer's pure psychic signature. They had been afraid it was a trap, another devourer trick. But as they drew closer and felt the genuine emotions radiating from the little hatchling, they dared to hope. The discovery that Shimmer was bonded to a human had been both wonderful and terrifying. Wonderful because it meant their child was safe and happy. Terrifying because their only experience with other species in recent centuries had been betrayal and pain. They want to learn about humans, Maya said, looking up at her mother. Starweaver has been studying my thoughts, and she's curious about families and love and friendship. She wants to understand how I could care about Shimmer even though we're different. Captain Rodriguez felt a maternal instinct she hadn't expected. Looking at the ancient creature through the barrier, she no longer saw a threat to her daughter. She saw another parent, someone who understood the fierce protective love that drove her own decisions. Through Maya's translation, Rodriguez began sharing her own experiences. The loss of her husband, the challenge of raising Maya alone, the fear she felt when she thought her daughter was in danger. Starweaver listened with the patience of ages, her large eyes reflecting understanding and sympathy. The other 2 Wyrmlings had remained outside the station, but their presence could be felt through the psychic network that connected all of their kind. Maya learned that one was Starweaver's son, Voidseeker, and the other was his mate, Dreamcaller. They were the parents of several hatchlings that had been lost during the Devourer Wars. They want to come in too, Maya said, but they're scared. They don't want to frighten anyone. Dr. Chen looked at Captain Rodriguez, who was already making the decision. Open the secondary docking bay, she ordered. Let's do this properly. As the station prepared to welcome all 3 adult Wyrmlings, something remarkable was happening. The crew members who had initially been terrified were now volunteering to help with the first contact protocols. Engineer Nakamura was working to modify the environmental systems to accommodate psychic-sensitive beings. Lieutenant Collins was establishing communication relays to record every moment of the historic meeting. Maya continued to serve as the bridge between the 2 species, her young mind processing concepts that would challenge the greatest philosophers. Through Starweaver, she was learning about the interconnectedness of all life, about the responsibility that came with great power, and about the healing that could come from genuine friendship across any divide. But the most important lesson was one that Starweaver was learning from Maya, that not all species would seek to exploit or corrupt the Wyrmling's gifts. Some, like humans, might simply offer friendship and understanding in return. As the second docking bay opened to welcome the rest of Shimmer's family, Maya felt a deep sense of rightness settling into her heart. She was about to become part of something bigger than she could imagine, the first interspecies family in galactic history. The second docking bay filled with an ethereal glow as Voidseeker and Dreamcaller entered the station. Maya watched in awe as the family reunion unfolded before her eyes. The 3 adult Wyrmlings moved through, their reunion dance with a grace that took her breath away. A complex choreography of light and sound that had been passed down through countless generations. Shimmer left Maya's arms for the first time in days, flying toward its family with joyous chirps that echoed through both docking bays. The little creature's scales burst into brilliant patterns of gold and white, as it was welcomed by the gentle touches of massive wings and the harmonious songs of its elders. Through her connection with Shimmer, Maya felt the overwhelming emotion of the reunion. It was like being caught in a warm tide of love, relief, and joy so pure it made her laugh and cry at the same time. The Wyrmling's empathic abilities meant that every feeling was shared among them, amplified and reflected until the entire station seemed to thrum with happiness. Dr. Chen's instruments were going wild, detecting psychic harmonics that his equipment had never been designed to measure. "The energy patterns are beautiful," he whispered to Captain Rodriguez. "They're not just communicating, they're creating some kind of psychic symphony." Voidseeker was smaller than Starweaver, but still massive compared to human standards. His scales shifted between deep purple and silver, and when he looked at Maya through the observation window, she felt a gentle curiosity probing at the edges of her mind. Unlike his mother's ancient wisdom, Voidseeker's mental touch felt younger, more energetic, filled with the protective instincts of a father. Dreamcaller was the most beautiful creature Maya had ever imagined. Her scales seemed to capture and hold starlight, creating patterns that moved like flowing water across her form. When she sang, her voice created harmonies that made the station's metal walls resonate like a musical instrument. Through Shimmer's translations, Maya learned that Dreamcaller had been pregnant when the Devourer attacks began. She had lost 3 eggs to the corrupted Wyrmlings who had raided their hidden nesting grounds. Shimmer was her only surviving child, thought lost for over 3 centuries. "She's been dreaming about Shimmer every night," Maya explained to the gathered humans. Wyrmling mothers can sense their children across any distance. She never stopped believing Shimmer was alive somewhere. The reunion continued for hours, with the Wyrmlings sharing memories and experiences through their psychic network. Maya found herself included in their mental circle, experiencing flashes of their lives over the past 3 centuries. She saw the loneliness of space travel, the constant vigilance against corrupted members of their own species, and the slowly fading hope that their race would survive. But she also experienced their wonder at the diversity of life in the galaxy, their joy in discovering new worlds and phenomena, and their deep commitment to protecting life wherever they found it. Despite everything they had suffered, the Wyrmlings remained fundamentally gentle beings. Captain Rodriguez watched her daughter serving as a bridge between species and felt a mixture of pride and concern. Maya was handling concepts and experiences far beyond her years, but she seemed to thrive in her role as translator and friend. The bond between her daughter and the Wyrmlings was clearly beneficial to both sides. Engineer Nakamura had been quietly working to improve the station's capabilities to accommodate their new guests. He approached Captain Rodriguez with a proposal that would have seemed insane just a week earlier. "Captain, I've been thinking. The Wyrmlings don't need life support in the traditional sense. They can survive in space indefinitely. But they do need psychic resonance to maintain their mental health. I could modify some of the cargo bays to create a habitat that would be more comfortable for them." The idea of permanently housing Wyrmlings on a human facility would have been unthinkable before, but now it seemed natural. The creatures weren't prisoners or specimens. They were guests and eventually, perhaps, family. Dr. Chen had been studying the interaction patterns between Maya and the Wyrmlings, and his findings were reshaping everything he thought he knew about interspecies communication. "The neural integration is unprecedented," he explained to the captain. "Maya's brain is actually developing new pathways to accommodate Wyrmling thought patterns. She's becoming something new, a hybrid consciousness that can truly understand both species." Meanwhile, Maya was learning about Wyrmling culture through direct experience. She discovered that their species had no concept of individual ownership or personal space in the human sense. Everything was shared, emotions, memories, even dreams. Privacy was possible, but it was maintained through mutual respect rather than physical barriers. "They think it's funny that humans live in separate rooms." Maya giggled, translating Dreamcaller's amused observations about human domestic arrangements. "They want to know why we hide our feelings from each other when sharing makes everything better." The cultural exchange was flowing in both directions. Through Maya's memories, the Wyrmlings were learning about human concepts of family, friendship, and individual achievement. They were fascinated by human creativity, art, music, and literature created by individuals rather than collective consciousness. Starweaver was particularly intrigued by Maya's memories of her father. The concept of a parent who was no longer present, but continued to influence a child's life through memory and love was foreign to Wyrmlings, who maintained mental connections with their deceased family members through genetic memory. She wants to understand about missing people, Maya explained, her voice growing soft. I'm showing her how I remember Daddy, how his songs and stories still make me feel safe even though he's not here anymore. The exchange touched something deep in the ancient Wyrmling's consciousness. Through their connection, she began to understand human concepts of individual loss and personal grief. It was different from the collective mourning that Wyrmlings experienced, but no less profound. As the day progressed, the Wyrmlings began to relax their initial caution around the human crew. Voidseeker started communicating directly with Dr. Chen, sharing knowledge about psychic phenomena that advanced human understanding by centuries. Dreamcaller began teaching some of the crew members simple Wyrmling songs, their voices creating harmonies that filled the station with peace. Lieutenant Collins made a breakthrough when she discovered that Wyrmling communication could be partially integrated with the station's computer systems. The creatures could project images and basic concepts directly into the ship's databases, creating a permanent record of their knowledge and culture. They're offering to share their star charts, she reported excitedly. They've mapped psychic phenomena throughout the galaxy. There are safe passages through space that nobody else knows about, and they're willing to share them with us. But the most significant development came when Shimmer made a request that surprised everyone. Through Maya's translation, the little creature asked if it could split its time between living with its Wyrmling family and staying with Maya and the humans. It wants both families, Maya explained. It loves its Wyrmling family, but it loves us too. It doesn't want to choose. The request led to discussions between the adult Wyrmlings that lasted deep into the night cycle. Through their psychic network, they debated concepts that had never been considered in their species' history. The idea of adoption across species lines, of maintaining loyalty to both biological and chosen families. Finally, Starweaver approached the observation window where Maya was waiting with barely contained anxiety. Through their connection, the ancient matriarch shared a decision that would change both species forever. The Wyrmlings had decided to stay. Not just temporarily, but permanently. They wanted to learn about humanity, to share their knowledge and culture, and to raise the next generation of Wyrmlings with an understanding of both species. Maya wouldn't have to choose between her human family and her Wyrmling bond. She would be the first being in galactic history to belong fully to both. 6 months after first contact, the mining station had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly integrated multi-species community. What had begun as a simple asteroid mining operation was now the most advanced research facility in known space, studying the intersection of human and Wyrmling consciousness. Maya had grown in ways that amazed everyone who knew her. Now 7 years old, she moved between human and Wyrmling modes of communication as easily as switching between languages. Her bond with Shimmer had evolved beyond mere friendship into something that Dr. Chen described as symbiotic consciousness, two minds that remained distinct but could share thoughts and emotions at will. The little girl had become the unofficial ambassador between the two species, helping resolve misunderstandings and facilitating cultural exchange. Her unique perspective as someone who belonged fully to both worlds made her invaluable in ways that would have seemed impossible for a child her age. Captain Rodriguez watched her daughter teaching a group of new human arrivals basic Wyrmling etiquette. Remember, when Dreamcaller's scales turn silver blue, she's feeling nostalgic. That's a good time to ask about Wyrmling history. But if they turn red-orange, she's worried about something and needs quiet time. The station now housed a rotating population of scientists, diplomats, and researchers from across human space, all eager to study the Wyrmling culture and capabilities. But it was also home to something more precious, the first interspecies family in recorded history. Shimmer had grown significantly over the months, now about the size of a large dog. Its scales had developed more sophisticated color patterns, and its psychic abilities were becoming stronger each day. Under the guidance of its Wyrmling family and with Maya's constant companionship, the young creature was developing into something remarkable, a bridge between two entirely different forms of consciousness. Dr. Chen's research had revealed astonishing possibilities. The neural pathways that allowed Maya to communicate with Wyrmlings appeared to be latent in all humans, requiring only proper stimulation to activate. Children seemed particularly adaptable, their developing brains more capable of forming the necessary connections. "We're not looking at a unique mutation," he explained to a gathering of xenobiologists from the Galactic Research Council. "We're looking at an evolutionary compatibility that suggests humans and Wyrmlings may have developed along parallel paths. It's as if both species were designed to eventually find each other." The implications were staggering. If humans could naturally bond with Wyrmlings, it meant the galaxy's most feared species could potentially be reintegrated into galactic civilization, not as weapons or threats, but as partners and allies. Starweaver had become something of a grandmother figure to the human children on the station. Several families had been allowed to bring their children to the facility, and the ancient Wyrmling delighted in sharing her vast knowledge with young minds. She taught them to see the connections between all living things, to understand that every action rippled outward through an invisible web of cause and effect. The little ones learned so quickly. Maya translated as Starweaver observed a group of children playing with holographic star maps. She says human children have natural wisdom that adults sometimes forget. They understand that friendship doesn't depend on what someone looks like. Voidseeker had found unexpected common ground with the station's engineers and technicians. His understanding of psychic energy fields had revolutionized human technology in ways that seemed almost magical. Devices that responded to thought rather than touch, computers that could process emotional data, and most remarkably, a new form of faster-than-light communication that used psychic resonance instead of traditional quantum entanglement. "It's not telepathy in the science fiction sense," Engineer Nakamura explained to a visiting delegation. "It's more like emotional networking. Wyrmlings can sense the psychic imprint of consciousness across vast distances. With their help, we're developing communication systems that could connect every human colony instantly." Dreamcaller had become fascinated with human art and music. She spent hours learning to appreciate forms of expression that were created by individuals, rather than collective consciousness. In return, she taught human musicians to incorporate psychic harmonics into their compositions, creating new forms of art that touched both the mind and the soul. Maya often served as her teacher and student in these exchanges. "Human music is different because it comes from one person's feelings," she explained to Dreamcaller during one of their sessions. "When Daddy sang to me, it was special because it was just for me. Wyrmling songs are beautiful because everyone shares them, but human songs are beautiful because they're personal." The cultural exchange was creating new hybrid forms of expression. Human artists were learning to create works that incorporated multiple perspectives, while Wyrmling creative expressions began to include individual variations and personal touches. A new form of art was emerging that belonged fully to either species but drew from both. But perhaps the most significant development was the gradual discovery of other uncorrupted Wyrmlings scattered across the galaxy. Starweaver's family had begun reaching out through the psychic network, carefully probing for the mental signatures of their lost kin. One by one, they were finding survivors, Wyrmlings who had hidden so deeply in the void between stars that even they had forgotten they existed. Each rescue mission became a family affair. Maya and Shimmer would accompany the adult Wyrmlings as they sought out their lost relatives, their combined human Wyrmling consciousness serving as a beacon of hope and safety. The rescued Wyrmlings were often traumatized, having spent centuries believing they were the last of their kind. The sight of Shimmer, young, healthy, and bonded with a human child, offered them proof that their species could have a future. "We found 3 more last week," Maya reported during one of Dr. Chen's regular interviews. "They were hiding in a nebula near the outer rim. They were so scared when they first saw humans, but when they felt how happy Shimmer was, they started to trust us." The station's population had grown to include 12 adult Wyrmlings and 6 juveniles, along with nearly 200 humans. It was becoming a true colony, not just a research facility, but a place where 2 species were learning to live together as equals and partners. Captain Rodriguez found herself dealing with increasingly complex diplomatic situations. Representatives from various galactic governments wanted to study the Wyrmlings, some with legitimate scientific interest, others with less benevolent motives. The captain had become fiercely protective of her extended family, turning away any delegation that seemed more interested in exploitation than cooperation. "They're not specimens," she told a particularly persistent military representative. "They're people. Intelligent beings with their own rights and dignity. Anyone who can't accept that isn't welcome here." The Wyrmlings had formally petitioned the Galactic Council for recognition as a sentient species with full rights and protections. Maya had served as their primary advocate. Her testimony about Wyrmling gentleness, intelligence, and capacity for friendship challenging centuries of fear and prejudice. As Maya prepared for bed one evening, surrounded by both her human family and her Wyrmling companions, she reflected on how much her life had changed. Shimmer curled up beside her as it had every night for months, its scales shifting to soft, sleepy colors. Through their bond, she felt the contentment and love that radiated from her alien friend. "Mama," she said as Captain Rodriguez tucked her in, "do you think other kids will get to have Wyrmling friends someday?" Captain Rodriguez smiled, looking around at the extended family that had grown beyond anything she could have imagined. "I think so, sweetheart. I think you and Shimmer are showing the whole galaxy that friendship is bigger than the differences between us." Outside Maya's window, the adult Wyrmlings floated in the station's expanded living areas, their psychic songs creating lullabies that helped both human and Wyrmling children drift off to peaceful sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new opportunities to build bridges between worlds. But tonight, two species that had once feared each other shared dreams of a future where no one would have to choose between different kinds of love. 5 years had passed since Maya first found Shimmer in the crystalline chamber, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. What had begun as a chance encounter between a lonely child and a frightened creature had evolved into the foundation of a new era of interspecies cooperation. Maya, now 12 years old, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, a massive facility built jointly by human and Wyrmling engineering that orbited the original mining station like a gleaming jewel. She watched as the latest transport arrived, carrying human families and Wyrmling pods from across the galaxy. Children of both species pressed against the viewports, eager to meet their new neighbors. Shimmer floated beside her, now the size of a small aircraft and possessed of wisdom that belied its young age. The creature's scales had developed intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories of its own, each color shift representing memories shared with Maya over their years together. "Remember when you were small enough to sit in my lap?" Maya said softly, reaching out to stroke Shimmer's flank. Through their bond, she felt the creature's amused affection. In response, Shimmer projected a holographic memory into the air around them, a perfect recreation of that first moment in Dr. Chen's laboratory when they had discovered each other. The image showed a tiny frightened hatchling being comforted by an even tinier human child, neither of them knowing they were about to change galactic history. Dr. Chen, now the director of the Interspecies Communication Institute, approached them with his usual armload of data tablets and measuring devices. His hair had gone completely gray in the past 5 years, but his eyes sparkled with the excitement of discovery. The latest psychological evaluations came back from the new bonding pairs. He reported to Maya with the respect he had learned to show the galaxy's first human Wyrmling ambassador. Success rate is holding steady at 93% for children under 10. We're seeing breakthrough cases even with teenagers and young adults. The bonding program had become the cornerstone of human Wyrmling integration. Carefully screened human children were paired with young Wyrmlings, creating partnerships that benefited both species. The humans gained access to the Wyrmlings' vast psychic abilities and cosmic perspective, while the Wyrmlings learned about individual identity and personal expression through their human partners. Maya had helped design the program's protocols, drawing on her experiences with Shimmer to create guidelines that ensured healthy, beneficial bonds for all participants. She had become something of a teacher herself, helping new bonding pairs navigate the early stages of their relationship. "The Andromedan delegation is requesting a demonstration tomorrow," Dr. Chen continued. "They're still skeptical that the bonds are genuine rather than some form of psychic control." Maya nodded, accustomed to such requests. Despite 5 years of proof, many species remain suspicious of the human-Wyrmling alliance. The old fears died hard, and there were still those who believed the Wyrmlings were somehow manipulating their human partners. Shimmer and I can show them the independence protocols, Maya agreed. Though I still think the best demonstration is just watching us disagree about something. Through their bond, she felt Shimmer's mental laughter. Despite their deep connection, Maya and Shimmer maintained distinct personalities and often had different opinions about everything from food preferences to social strategies. Their relationship was partnership, not possession. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez and commander of the Harmony Fleet, joined them on the observation deck. The fleet was a joint human Wyrmling force dedicated to exploring the galaxy and making peaceful contact with new species. Under her leadership, they had successfully established friendly relations with 17 different alien civilizations. The council session went well, she reported to Maya. The Wyrmling Restoration Act passed by a unanimous vote. All corrupted Wyrmlings will now be treated as victims rather than criminals. And the Galactic Medical Corps is establishing facilities specifically designed to help heal their trauma. It had taken years to change the galaxy's perspective on corrupted Wyrmlings, but Maya's advocacy had been crucial. She had testified before the Galactic Council, sharing memories provided by Starweaver that showed the true history of Wyrmling corruption. The revelation that every monster attack had actually been a victim of the Devourer experiments had fundamentally shifted public opinion. Starweaver herself appeared on the deck, moving with the grace that came from 5 years of living alongside humans. The ancient matriarch had learned to appreciate human concepts of personal space and privacy, while still maintaining her species' natural empathy and wisdom. Through Maya's translation, Starweaver shared news that brought tears to everyone's eyes. She says they found the Singing Grove, Maya announced, her voice hushed with reverence. The Singing Grove had been a legendary site in Wyrmling culture, a place where the psychic harmonics of the universe could be heard as actual music. It had been thought destroyed in the Devourer Wars, but a joint human Wyrmling expedition had finally located it in a hidden pocket of space. They want to take some of the human children there next month, Maya continued. To hear the songs of the universe and understand how everything is connected, such expeditions had become common as the two species continued to learn from each other. Human children brought back insights about the nature of consciousness and the interconnectedness of all life, while their Wyrmling companions learned about individuality, creativity, and the strength that came from personal bonds. Voidseeker and Dreamcaller had become the primary teachers in the Wyrmling Cultural Exchange Program. They worked with human anthropologists and philosophers to create curricula that could bridge the gap between individual and collective consciousness. Their own son, Shimmer, had become something of a celebrity, the first Wyrmling to grow up fully integrated with human culture. The success of the integration had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Species that had never shown interest in peaceful cooperation were requesting diplomatic contact, hoping to learn the secrets of the human Wyrmling alliance. Maya often found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador to these new contacts. Tomorrow's delegation includes representatives from the Crystalline Confederacy, Admiral Rodriguez informed Maya. They're particularly interested in the emotional healing, applications of Wyrmling empathy. The medical applications of human Wyrmling bonding had proven revolutionary. Wyrmlings could sense and help heal emotional trauma in ways that conventional therapy couldn't match. Human partners provided the individualized approach that allowed the healing to be tailored to specific personal needs. Dr. Chen had documented cases where veterans of interstellar conflicts had found peace through carefully supervised sessions. With bonded Wyrmling healers, abuse survivors had learned to trust again through the gentle, non-invasive empathy that Wyrmlings offered. Even simple depression and anxiety responded remarkably well to the cosmic perspective that Wyrmlings could share. As the day shift ended and the station's artificial sunset began, Maya made her way to the children's garden, a vast biodome where human and Wyrmling young played together under the light of carefully programmed stars. The sight never failed to fill her with wonder and pride. Human children chased holographic butterflies while young Wyrmlings practiced their flying skills, diving and swooping between floating platforms. The language they used with each other was a hybrid of human speech and Wyrmling color song, creating communications that belonged fully to neither species but drew from both. At the garden center, a group of children worked together on a massive art project. a sculpture that could only be perceived fully through both visual and psychic senses. It was a representation of friendship that transcended species boundaries, created by minds that had never known those boundaries existed. Maya found her favorite spot on a hill overlooking the garden, with Shimmer curled up beside her like a living constellation. They watched the children play, and through their bond, Maya felt the deep satisfaction that came from seeing their example multiplied across dozens of young partnerships. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd been afraid of you that first day?" Maya asked Shimmer. Through their connection, Shimmer shared an emotion that was part gratitude, part amusement, and part cosmic certainty. In the Wyrmling understanding of time and probability, their meeting had been inevitable, two species reaching across the void to find the connection they both needed. As the artificial night fell over Harmony Station, Maya watched the stars appear through the biodome's transparent ceiling. Somewhere out there, more human Wyrmling partnerships were exploring the galaxy, discovering new worlds and making friends with species they had never dreamed existed. The fears and prejudices that had once kept the galaxy divided were slowly giving way to curiosity and hope. Children who had grown up with Wyrmling companions were now adults, carrying the lessons of empathy and connection into their chosen careers as diplomats, scientists, and explorers. Maya smiled as she felt Shimmer's contentment flowing through their bond. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to build bridges between different forms of consciousness. But tonight, as she had every night for the past 5 years,